Welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast with me, Venus O'Hara. An orgasmic lifestyle is about reaching a climax in all areas of life, not just in the bedroom. Here, we dive deep with expert guests on topics like nutrition, spirituality, personal development, sexuality, and much more. Together, we'll explore lifestyle lessons to help you lead a life that's fulfilling, joyful, and unapologetically orgasmic. I'm your guide, Venus O'Hara. Welcome to episode 162 of the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast with Venus O'Hara. In this Strawberry Moon episode, we discuss toxic relationships and emotional vampires. We speak with Coach Daniel Ratner, who is the author of the book Emotional Vampires: How to Protect Your Happiness from People Who Suck You Dry. I also review the book Sunscreen Love: The 4 Phases to Find the Love You Want, which is also by today's guest. And the episode ends with a meditation with affirmations for releasing toxic relationships. But first, let me share with you some reflections on emotional vampires. Let's talk about emotional vampires. I thoroughly enjoyed this book from our guest today, Coach Daniel Ratner. And the topic of emotional vampires is very juicy, and especially on social media, people are gaining greater awareness of these dynamics that can be in your workplace, in your family, in your relationships. And I've been observing this myself, and something that is very difficult, or has been difficult for me, is this kind of realization that someone that I looked up to, that I cared for, that I admired, put on a pedestal sometimes, someone that I really liked, that uncovering a dynamic that was always there, but uncovering that the thing I admired, or the person, is actually toxic for me, not a good dynamic at all. Or that someone, not that they are exactly toxic, but they are bringing out something negative in me, a version of myself that I don't particularly like. And I found this so much in my life. And when I discover this, it's so disappointing, especially when it is with someone that you truly valued, a relationship that you truly valued. And it just can make you go, oh my God. And in one particular trait that I cannot stand in people is one-upmanship. That is when you say, I did this, and they said, well, I did this. For example, I say, I went to Tenerife last month, and they said, well, that's nothing. I went to 11erife. That type of thing. I've had that with people in my life, and it makes me go into defense mode, as if I have to prove myself and keep on my toes about how interesting I am, or how qualified, or whatever. It's just it's something that's just not cool at all. And something I've been thinking about a lot lately is actually superiority complex, and that's something that triggers me a lot. And I recently read in the book Psycho-Cybernetics that superiority complex doesn't really exist. It's actually a cover-up of someone who feels inferior. And I still struggle to get my head around that, because someone who has this superior, I'm better than you kind of energy, they don't have behaviors that align with inferiority. It's a lot of entitlement, and that can really throw me. And I've attracted a lot of that type of person in my life, and I don't know why. I really don't know why, because it's not a trait that I admire. I find it really annoying, actually. And I think it's in life we should always, be humble and grounded. And yeah, this grandiosity is not cool. But speaking of grandiosity, that is something that is aligned as well with narcissism. And the categories of emotional vampires that our guest talks about in his book are the perpetual victim, the narcissist, the socially awkward, the drama queen, the emotionally constipated, parents, siblings, and in-laws, the overly dependent, non-stop talkers, second guessers, the projectors, teenagers, where logic doesn't exist, and the terrible twos. And also there is a an exercise here, or there's a guide to see if you are the emotional vampire. And there's also the friendship audit. So it's also interesting to see, it's also, necessary for us to take stock on our own behaviors and why we might be attracting certain people, certain dynamics into our lives. And recently I became aware of some friends that I've been a confidant for, and their relational dynamics that have been pretty toxic and quite unfulfilling for the friends who have confided in me. And it's interesting because when someone confides in you, you listen, and then you almost validate how they're feeling, or the conclusions they've reached based on the facts that they have observed, have lived through. But then also I have taken a step back and seen those dynamics in at play, and realized that the friend I was empathizing or supporting actually was attracting those dynamics, and they were not entirely aware of it. So it's very complicated. These relationships are very, very complicated, and I do think it's very easy to point fingers at other people and call them toxic, narcissists, etc. But it's so important to look at ourselves. And another book by our guest today, because I think I've already reviewed his books. He has a great way of writing. It just draws you in from the first sentence. He has another book called Sunscreen Love. And as a love student myself, it's something that I was very interested in. And he talks about, there is a chapter in it talking about, what's on the back of your shirt, and to speak to a trusted friend to see what are your blind spots, what are the behaviors or the attitudes that you have that you may not be aware of, or that could be problematic for other people. I think it's super, super necessary to do that, and to take responsibility for your part in a toxic relationship. That doesn't mean to say that you deserve it at all, but there are certain reasons why some people come into your life and stir you up in a toxic way. So I can't wait to talk about this conversation. I share this conversation with you. It's emotional vampires. Everyone knows one, and it's so difficult, especially if you are obliged to spend time, let's say, in an office at work with someone like that, or especially, family as well, because those are, you can't just walk away. It's not that easy to walk away from those dynamics. But so let's dive into this conversation about emotional vampires, and hopefully we'll get clarity by the end, and find some peace and more fulfilling relationships in our lives. If you enjoy the affirmations and meditations I share here, you will love the longer versions I've created on Insight Timer, the world's #1 meditation app, available in the App Store and on Google Play. Every Friday, I release a brand new guided practice on topics like love, health, wealth, motivation, abundance, and many more things, all designed to help you relax, recharge, and realign. Just search for Venus O'Hara on Insight Timer, or follow the link in the show notes. Now it's time for this episode's interview. We speak with Coach Daniel Ratner, who is the author of the book Emotional Vampires: How to Protect Your Happiness from People Who Suck You Dry. Daniel Ratner, welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast. It's a real pleasure to have you here. For those who are unfamiliar with your work, could you tell us what you do?
Well, really, my main work is I'm a rare coin dealer. I buy and sell rare United States coins. But about 10 years ago, I found myself growing spiritually and also wanting to help other people out. So I started teaching classes on relationships. And then that morphed into more classes. And I guess God gave me this ability to be able to teach and reach people very well. So I started writing books about 4 years ago. And I reached out to you because my latest book, Emotional Vampires, is being released in January 2026.
So what inspired you to follow this path, to go into this, to make this change?
I have this gift of understanding relationships and understanding what drives people. Even when I was, my 20s and partying and not being serious in life, when I had, two people go to get married and I go to the wedding, I'm like, oh, that has no shot. And unfortunately, I'm like, I have an inner skill that I can tell what's going to work and what's not going to work. And I know what drives. Like I know, I'm not saying I know for sure, but like when you have two people going to get married or in a relationship and they're in love, right? If you can't define that word, how do you know what it is? And love to a man and a woman is a different thing. And I define I define those terms.
Mm. So, what
So,
can you predict then? Kind of what's going to what the challenges will be, or
well, the challenges are obviously ego is one of them, but understanding what drives a man, what drives a woman.
mm,
And by the way, this all of your podcast is also called the orgasmic lifestyle,
mm,
and that starts in the bedroom, but it really doesn't start in the bedroom. It starts everywhere else in the house. You know,
mm,
when a man has the awareness of his wife's needs,
mm,
she's going to want to open up to him. She's going to not just emotionally, but also physically, because the connection in a relationship, the physical connection, when there's an issue in a relationship, I put relationship into four parts. It's an acronym called PIES,
mm,
PIES. It's called physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. And when there's a physical problem in a relationship, it's generally not physical, it's emotional.
mm. Yeah,
So I try
definitely.
to I try to heal those emotional rifts between people.
So it becomes more orgasmic. But I see the part.
Yes, exactly. Well, of course. It's like you want to like really have sex with a guy who like doesn't who belittles you and gaslights you or doesn't connect you emotionally, or a guy who's emotionally has emotional constipation. No, you want a guy
Mm.
who's there who listens to you and understands you and gets you.
Absolutely. The actual premise of this podcast is to reach a climax in all areas of life. So relationships is obviously a big part of that, and we also talk about nutrition, wellness, and other things. And the full moons is more sexuality. I have a lunar cycle because I'm in this field for a very long time now, and I wanted to kind of create more variety in content because I think sexuality is more powerful when you present it among other topics because it is an integral part of life, and life satisfaction. So.
Yeah, well, for sure.
Mm,
I actually was offered to go on a podcast. Well, all
mm,
she wanted to talk about was the actual part of sex.
mm,
And I refused to go on that podcast because sex is like obviously some people are better and are more connected and more, romantic and
mm,
more passionate, but not everybody, but it feels good no matter what who you're doing it with. But th that
mm,
connection is based on an emotional connection. It's funny you mentioned um, I have a book coming out after this one right now. It's called When Botox Met Bezos.
mhm.
And one of the chapters is called Kosher Climax.
Okay, and what's this?
The idea of a kosher climax is that it doesn't start in the bedroom, it starts everywhere else in the house. And that
Mm,
when a man has, now I'm coming from a man's perspective, when he has the awareness of a woman's needs without being asked, without being told, without being like, then she's gonna that makes her just so much more attractive to him. I tell
mm.
women I host a lot of meals at my house on Friday nights.
Yeah, I saw that on your book.
And
A lot.
sometimes I have men and women who are single in their 20s, and of course they're
Mm,
all looking.
mm,
And I tell the men, when after I serve, let's say chicken soup, and a man stands up without being asked,
mm,
right? I don't say a word. I'm busy talking to my guests, and he picks up all the bowls of empty soups. He
mm,
brings them to the kitchen and puts them to the sink. I ask the girls, "What do you think of a guy like that?" And they say he's 20% hotter,
mm.
right? Because he's doing something without being asked.
Yeah,
He's taking responsibility, and women love men that take responsibility.
yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think I think it's just having that awareness, the empathy, and the awareness of your needs is really exciting. But I really like the emphasis on emotion as well and in life satisfaction. And I think it's sometimes hard for the men to tap into that vulnerable side. I think women want that too, and and I think for men it can be challenging.
Women are more empathetic and
Mm,
open up more emotionally, and men are less empathetic. And this is a problem when you're an empathetic person. That means you're an empath. You want to give yourself,
mm,
excuse me, you want to open up emotionally. And when a man is either what I call, as you read in the book, is socially awkward,
mm,
is a hard time opening up emotionally, or just has emotional constipation. He can't open up themselves. And you can marry a guy like that. You can certainly marry a guy that just doesn't open up emotionally, and you can have an okay marriage. But what happens after 5, 10, 15 years, when you as a wife, as a woman, want to share your feelings, you want to get close to him, you want him to share his life, you want to connect emotionally. When he's not there to open up, you're in a marriage, but you're more just it's more of a contract than anything else. I mean, it's not passionate, and that bedroom is not rocking. You know what I'm talking
Mm,
about? Like,
yeah.
but you want a guy who opens up, and the problem for a narcissist, and this is
Mm,
an issue, is that when you like to give as an empath, and you're giving and giving, and narcissists can sniff that out like shark bait to a shark, right? They
mm.
put their claws in them, they love bomb them, they fall in love with them. Next thing you know, you're not in a relationship, you're in a manipulationship.
Wow, I love that word. Wow.
Yeah.
Don't like what it means, but
Yeah, no, it's horrible. And a lot of women are fine. Again, there are women who are narcissists
Mm,
also. In fact, the reason why I
mm,
wrote the book was because of a woman who was a narcissist in her life, and that's how the book. My wife
mm.
woke up one morning. My wife is an empath. So am I, and we don't have problems with anybody in our lives. Like
Common
there's no
denominator. Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
there's no issues. Like this one
Yeah.
woman, there's a lot of issues, and my wife finally woke up one morning and find she can't because I when I teach, I use a lot of acronyms in all
Yeah,
my
I know.
books,
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
lots of acronyms, and I'm a little sick, and some of them are really good. And she said, I want to find keepers. I want to find the people I want to keep in my life. And the word keeper,
Mm,
you get rid of two E's, which is envy and ego, because you don't want
mm,
them in your life. You don't need someone
mm,
with envy who's never happy. You don't need someone with an ego, an overlarged ego. And you want to find people who are kind, peaceful, empathetic, and respectful. If you can find those four things, KPER, kind, peaceful, empathetic, and respectful, you can have them in your life. You
mm.
could probably marry them too.
So this is going back. I finished reading your book, Emotional Vampires.
Yeah.
Very juicy title. It's very engaging as well. I just read it in 3 days.
Yeah.
So tell us the inspiration behind this book.
The inspiration behind this book. So my main topic that I teach about and write about are relationships, from dating to marriage.
Mm,
Most people spend more time learning to get a driver's license than they learn what it means to be in a passionate relationship. So this is why most marriages fail. If you take 100 marriages in the world today, I don't know about Spain or UK, but I know in America, I'm from America,
mm.
US. If you take 100 marriages in America, how many get divorced?
About just over half, maybe.
Yeah, let's say half, about
Mm,
half. Of the halves that are not divorced, so if 100 marriages, 50 out the window. Of the
mm.
half that are not divorced, how many of those do you think are passionate, happy, loving relationships?
10.
10. Okay, so you're walking down the aisle today to get married, right? To say your
Mm,
vows, and you're in love, and you think that love is
mm,
going to last forever. Do you know why? Because it's easy. You're 25, 30 years old. It's easy. But the
mm,
longer you're married, if you don't romance the relationship, if you don't take that lust, infatuation, desire, and turn to love, that
mm,
relationship is going to burn.
mm,
It's going to be destroyed. And so the idea is that if you go into it with some wisdom, here's the thing. Everyone thinks they know what they're doing. They think they know how to be in a relationship. But there's a difference between, and I give the wisdom. Like I said, I'm not
mm,
a matchmaker, I'm a mate maker. I
mm,
turn people into someone that someone's going to want to marry. And that there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit,
mm.
right? Wisdom is knowing not to put it into a fruit cake.
Yeah, okay.
And
I
if
like
and if
that.
you don't go into a marriage with the right wisdom, what your wife needs and your husband needs, you're the fruitcake. Don't be a fruitcake.
Mm,
I would recommend reading my book, Sunscreen Love, The Four
uh,
Fates to Find You Want. And that book will give you all the tools you need to be in a passionate relationship. So what happened was when I was writing that book and teaching these classes, self-esteem became a major issue because a lot of people don't love themselves and they feel like that they find a spouse and get married that they'll be happy. But guess what? Those relationships never work because you have to love yourself before you can love somebody else. So out of that book called Never Feeling Loved Again and those classes, the idea that we have these people in our life that drain us of energy
mm,
and recognizing I have 12 different categories, including the narcissist, which is the most dangerous, and the drama queen and the boundary invader and the nonstop talker and you know the victim card, all these different categories of people that drain. And by the way, one of the categories it's big for everybody is parents, siblings, and in-laws.
mm, yeah.
We all have a relative that drains us of energy,
Mm,
right? And we have to learn how to manage these relationships. And so the book basically goes through the 12 different categories and then going through how do you make this relationship healthy. And if you don't have to have them, you have to find a way to maybe not have them in your life.
mm. Yeah, I really like what you said about
healthy doesn't mean close all the time. About that's a really interesting point because as we approach, Christmas, a lot of these questions arise, and sometimes something that I've learned, which is kind of sad. Maybe you can shed some light on this.
Sure.
Is that sometimes people in your life, some of them that you cannot, because they're family members or sometimes you have to create distance to create respect, and I think that's so sad. You know?
Well, it's a fact.
Yeah.
I mean, you have someone in your life, it could be your parent or your sibling, and
Mm,
you want to have a relationship. I know people do, who haven't talked to their siblings in 50 years. That's
mm,
not the way to do it. The way
mm,
to do it is to redefine the word healthy.
mm,
And for some people, like, let's say for Italian families, they go to their mom's house every Sunday night for meatballs and spaghetti. Well, if they marry a woman and that relationship is not, with in-laws not so good, you have to limit your time with each other, which means you might only see them once a month, once a year, twice a year, only on Zoom calls. And you have to thank God with Zoom that you can redefine your relationship now, still have one, but not have to be in the same room with them.
mm,
It makes it so you can keep a relationship, but just redefine that word healthy because sometimes there are toxic people in our lives. And the funny thing is, like, if you had a mother that was, draining of you, and a lot of people have parents that are just, and we
yeah.
all we all do, especially as they get older, that you have to what I call time box, just to limit your time with them because if someone and the reason why you have to protect your happiness, you're the
Mm,
only one that can protect it. No one else can. You have to figure out what's draining me in my life. I don't need them in my life, or I need them less in my life if I have to have them. But a lot of our people we have in our lives, you don't have to have because they're really just friends. And most of
mm,
your friends come from either an event or a circumstance. You didn't really pick
mm,
your friends,
mm. And
right?
that's
So
yeah.
and like you might have a friend from, let's say, high school. And in high school, she was great, but now you see her at your parties and your events and your gatherings, and you're like, when she leaves, you're happy when she leaves. And the
Mm,
question you have to ask yourself is the price of admission worth it? Is the price of admission for me to re-feel those feelings I had back when I was in high school? Now that I'm, 40 years old, do I need to have that? And
mm.
really, as you know, I mean, I assume you're not in your 20s anymore. That as you get older, you have less and less friends. It's by choice. It's not like you're less friendly. It's you don't want as many people in your life that drain you. You become more aware
Mm.
of it as you get older.
Yeah. But I just feel guilty about because I've had a lot of I'm very guided by intuition,
Right.
and sometimes friends have seemed to have reached some kind of that there's a clash in values or something, and there's
Oh
just
yeah.
and then sometimes it can be really hard to notice that you're the common denominator, but these friendships have died, and then you can think the path of choosing loneliness is where integrity is, and sometimes that's kind of scary.
Well, I don't think lonely is an issue because now with obviously with social media and
Mm,
online dating apps and something like that, I think you'll find your people that you'll be friends with. But you're now, if one of the issues, I can't remember which book I wrote this in, is that because of the manipulation of news, I don't
mm,
want to call it fake news. It's really
uh-huh,
more manipulation. When you read an article online and the web knows you're reading an article and knows you're sharing it or liking it or spending time on it, it's going to feed you more of those articles. So what happens in
mm,
today's world with politics, especially, I was going to say,
mm,
especially in America, it's so divisive. There's black and white, and that's it. There's no gray area. And people,
mm.
you can't like, I know so many people that are not friends with other people who are, it's Donald Trump. Oh, they're pro-Trump. And literally, my friend got divorced because of Trump.
Wow.
He got divorced because his wife's father was in the Clinton administration or something, and like they can't stand him. And he loves Trump, and they go to Thanksgiving dinners, and I'm like, it destroyed the relationship.
So you're saying so about politics. I mean, sometimes that you can maybe suggest making a pact not to speak about politics.
Sure. Well,
Mm,
like here I have a family member. We're not aligned on many things as far
mm,
as politics.
mm,
And I just don't because she's very close to me. I do not bring it up. We do not discuss it. It's off
mm.
topic because it's
Yeah.
all going to create animosity. Now
Mm,
with friends, you can choose not to have those friends if you want to, because it's, a big topic. They say there's two things you should never discuss and with mixed company is politics and religion. So,
mm.
they're very hot topics.
So something I found is that's kind of interesting is 10 years ago I gave up alcohol, and then you find that your friend pool um, decreases quite a lot or shrinks. And something I found really interesting is it was a very good decision for me. And then I kind of went on this health journey. I started going to the gym for the first time in my life. I started juicing. I became vegan. I just kind of like made a lot of healthy choices. But I find sometimes that, they say a friend in need is a friend indeed. But I think there are less friends when you're thriving. Do you have any information about that? Because
I
like,
think I
mm,
think what happens is um, I don't think you have less friends. I think you are choosing to have less friends, is my opinion. Because I
okay.
think as that when you're emotionally healthy, you'll find that a lot of people that you used to have in your life, when you're in your teens and your 20s, and maybe if you're single in your early 30s, and you're out in the world, and you go to work, you go to clubs, whatever you go to, your friends, oh, well, they're my friend, they're my friend. Anyone you meet, your friend. You meet someone in class, meet someone in yoga class, they're my friends, they're my friends. But we start to really get older and kind of start to have more wisdom.
Mm,
Like, they kind of drain me of energy. I don't really need so many friends. And so
mm,
you're much more limited on who you are. I don't think it's because it's because you're wiser. And by the way, how do I say this? When you're emotionally healthy, you're more likely going to be physically healthy. When you're physically
mm,
healthy, the flywheel. They all go hand in hand. When you have emotional baggage and you hold it in, and you can never forgive someone, you're holding a grudge against somebody. That emotional baggage can actually turn into a physical malady, and you can get sick because of it. And
mm.
so this is why eating healthy is so important. You are, like my wife says all the time, you are what you eat. Junk in, junk out,
Yeah.
right? Junk in. And by the way, I love drinking.
Mm,
And I don't drink anymore. I stopped
yeah.
for a number of
Mm,
reasons. And I think it is because I don't think it's healthy for you. Um, and it's really good. I mean, I like catching a buzz. It's fun. I mean, I love scotch, but like if I have some, I have like a little, I'm not alcoholic, but like I'll have a tiny, obviously if you're an alcoholic, then you have to go cold turkey, right?
mm.
I'm not, but I like, well, like on Friday night, I had a little bit, I just sniffed it, just to get a little taste of it. But it's not healthy for you. And so we watch what we eat. I'm very careful about eating, and um, living here in Jerusalem, I don't have a car, so I walk everywhere. I walk, I don't know how many miles I walk a day, but I walk a lot. And thank God, it helps with my emotions. When you're going through anxiety, depression, really running or heavy exercise is a great way to get rid of that depression, because God gave us this ability. It's called melatonin, serotonin, dopamine, a number of other drugs we have in our brain that need to be developed. And the only way to do that is through exercise, because you're not, if you want dinner today, you're in America, you call 1-800 DoorDash, and there comes dinner. In the olden days, you had to go to the river, get the water, and chop down a tree and go kill an animal. Like, it was so much work, and plant like you pick the wheat, pick the beans, and you don't do anything anymore. So like, we're not exercising. Our bodies are. By the way, we have more people today on antidepressants than any time in the history of the world. We have more therapists per capita than any time in the history of the world. And we should be happiest. We should be the happiest ever, with access to everything, access to food, shelter, information. Yet we're depressed and we're not happy and we're not even getting married. What's going on?
Yeah, I live in Barcelona, so here it's very walkable as well. I've only been on public transport once since the pandemic,
Yeah.
so it's just great to walk everywhere. But I find with the alcohol though, it's just such a big part of socializing, and people rely on it to kind of escape from their life. Or I've created a life that I don't need to escape from because I love it. So
Yeah.
it just makes more sense. But then people feel judged when you're making that decision, so they can create this rift
Oh,
with
sure.
friends, and then you no longer vibe with those people, you
Well,
know.
because they don't want to feel like it's like when they, oh, just have a beer right now, have a drink with me, because they don't want to feel like you're drinking alone,
Mm,
because they don't want to feel like they're maybe an alcoholic, or
mm,
have to rely on alcohol to be in a social situation. And so they feel uncomfortable when you feel fine. You're fine. They feel uncomfortable because you're not drinking, right?
yeah,
Which
yeah,
makes no sense. Now, if you are an alcoholic and you're admitted alcoholic, you don't care. You're happy to drink by yourself, right?
yeah.
It's when you're not saying you're alcoholic, but when you have to rely on that for social, being social, that it becomes uncomfortable when you have someone in your group they're out with who's not drinking. And
Mm,
then they pray, oh, come on, just have a drink, just have a drink. And so you order a, club soda with lime or something, just so you look like you're having a drink. And that
mm.
sometimes can solve everything over, where you look like you have a drink, or have a mixed drink that's, virgin, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, Yeah, I do that a lot with there's this really good water here that's called Vichy Catalan. It's one of the best
Yeah.
natural carbonated waters. It looks kind of like gin tonic.
The problem is all those virgin drinks are just full of sugar. I mean, it's all they are,
Yeah,
is
but
just
this is
sugar.
just water, so it's okay. It's just
Yeah, well, that's
water.
fine. You put a few limes, lemons in or something, or
Yeah,
put a splash of
exactly.
grenadine, or
Yeah,
or, chili.
ginger actually. Yeah, ginger and lemon is quite nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So going to narcissist, which is probably the juiciest chapter in your book.
yes,
We see a lot of carousels on Instagram about narcissists, especially
yes, yeah.
narcissistic, behaviors, which is different from diagnosing people. I was wondering, do you think there's any kind of remedy if someone has an awareness, or do you think there's just no awareness about it at all?
I think that my awareness, what I have, what I call NADAR. It's my radar for
Nade. Oh
narcissists.
wow. Okay.
And it's when I meet a guy who's 40, now of course, women can be narcissists too, for sure.
Mm,
But when I meet a guy who's 45 years old, been divorced twice, and is very outgoing and gregarious, what is going on? And so
mm,
that's why I have in the book what's called the narcissist sniff test. And actually,
mm.
it's in the book that you have, and it's
Yeah.
also in my next book too, because it's so important to understand what are some clues of a narcissist. And one of the
Mm.
clues is, it's funny, one of them, that scientifically, I don't know if it works or not, but it's called the yawn test.
I saw that. That's so
Yeah.
interesting. Tell us. Tell us.
Because narcissists don't have oxytocin, supposedly don't produce oxytocin. So that's a that's a drug that makes you bond like a mother with its baby. And like
Mm,
this is like when you I talk about this, I think in my next book, like even if you're like have a guy who was a friend
yeah.
and like you're not attracted to him, whatever, but he's a friend, whatever. And next thing you know, you start hugging him and your skin touches. Next thing you know, you're thinking to yourself, he's not that bad. Because the reason
Mm,
is oxytocin makes you have a desire for somebody.
mm,
So you want to mimic them. So like when you yawn at a table, everyone usually yawns. But a
mm.
narcissist doesn't have that mimicry. They don't have that
Okay.
in their brain. So they don't yawn. Another way to find out is ask them about their exes. Why did they get divorced? What was it? And if they avoid you'll hear this. They'll avoid the question. They'll
Mm,
change the topic. They'll say all their exes are crazy. But when they're not taking any responsibility for a failed relationship, that is a huge sign of narcissism.
mm,
Huge.
mm. Yeah, I think we should definitely have take responsibility. It's so important to.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I was wondering with empaths who obviously like to give, how can an empath learn to receive? Because I think sometimes people I know, or because I love giving, and I've found myself, attracting people who are definitely emotional vampires. But I wonder sometimes, am I able? Because if I'm even in receiving mode, or someone's giving me something, I'm thinking, how can I repay or how can I give back?
sure.
Yeah.
So empaths do want to give. I
Mm.
think you just said empaths. They do. They want
But
to give
how
you.
can you actually learn to receive as well when someone's being empathetic with you? So
Well, empaths, from my understanding, empaths don't love, but they're willing to sit and listen to other people's
yeah.
emotional problems
Mm,
and listen. Even if they don't feel sorry for them or they don't feel sad about something sad happening, they still empathize with them.
mm,
And I think that's important. Even if sometimes you have to fake it. Like sometimes you have to sit there and like listen to your husband or your wife or your partner and just sit there, oh yeah, I understand. You don't understand. Like you have to do that sometimes. But
mm,
that's part of relationship. That people say, well, that's manipulation. Well, no, sometimes manipulation leads to capitulation, which means you'll have a better relationship, right?
mm,
You have to sometimes I say fake it until you make it.
mm,
In my marriage book, one of the keys that men need in a relationship is respect. More than
mm,
love, it's respect. And so I tell women in my classes that when your husband walks in or from work, you should be on the phone and you say, "Hey, Sarah, my husband just walked in. I have to go now." Say it loud enough for him to hear you, and you go click and you go, "Hi, honey." It's a game changer in a relationship because a man knows he's walking into his castle and his wife is stopping what she's doing to recognize he's walking in. And that's more important than running up and hugging and kissing to him, giving a hug and a kiss, which never happens after 2 weeks after a wedding, right? That doesn't happen anymore. So like respect for a man is important. We are simple. We're not difficult. We
mm,
need three things as a man. We
mm,
need food,
mm.
we need sex, and we need
Mm.
respect. And everything else is a bonus.
Oh wow.
Women, on the other hand, they need something else.
Mm,
A man should obviously respect his wife, but that's going to come when he learns to love his wife. And that comes through what I call the 4 A's: attention, affection, appreciation, and awareness. And when he
mm,
shows those four things to his wife, that respect's going to follow. and they'll have a great relationship because the needs of a
Mm.
man and a woman are different.
Yeah. I think they're very complementary though, if they're if it works. And I think sometimes it's what's really challenging is I think a lot of our relationships are based on assumption about how we think a relationship should be and not enough actual communication.
Well,
Um,
I tell my students, if you're dating a guy or girl and you're thinking about getting married, you better have share and understand and come to terms with two words and define those two words. And
mm,
those two words are love and marriage,
mm.
right? If you can't define them and agree on a common definition, then you're going to have a hard time.
So what's your definition of love?
So I give two things. I give what I call in my sunscreen love book. It's called the feeling of being in love.
Mm,
I want to give without getting anything in return.
mm,
Right? That's the feel. I love you. I want to give to you. That's the feeling of being in love. That's not the definition. The definition is the emotional pleasure you feel when you focus on the virtues of another person and you continue to associate them with those virtues, which means there's a reason why you fell in love. There's a reason why you're walking down the aisle to marry this person. What happened to those reasons? Why is your relationship going through stress or turmoil? What happened? You stopped focusing on their positive character traits and you started focusing on the negative character traits.
mm,
That's all that happened. Chances are, when people say, well, they changed. No, they didn't change. Your relationship changed. You didn't focus on respect and he didn't focus on the four A's: attention, affection, appreciation, awareness. And when you do those things, that relationship is not going to change. And you're going to stay in love. Are they going to annoy you? Sure, it's part of life. I've been married 24 years, but the love I have for my wife does not compare to what I did 24 years ago because I had no idea what love was. Now that I'm married 24 years, I know how to navigate a relationship.
mm.
And this is what I'm trying to teach over and to give to other people.
Wow. 'Cause I think also you mentioned in the book when someone asks you why you love them and they just start talking about how you make them feel.
Yeah, sure. That's called infatuation.
Okay.
I love infatuation, a momentary desire in the brain that
Mm,
someone has something you want.
It's also
Like for
kind of how
example,
you make them feel. It's also that's like narcissistic supply as well. Would you say
yeah,
that's
like for example, I don't know if you probably have a lot of fish in Barcelona, right? Like I use this example, like salmon. Let's say you
on
like
vegan?
salmon.
So
Oh, you're vegan, right. So let's say you like fish, right? And you say, oh, I love salmon, teriyaki salmon. My kids love teriyaki salmon, but they don't love salmon. They love the pleasure that salmon brings them. If they
mm,
really love the salmon, they wouldn't kill it and eat it.
yeah.
They would take a live fish, they'd put it in a bowl of water by their bedstand. They'd read it fish stories at night and take it on fish play dates. They don't love salmon. They have an infatuation with salmon. And many people, because they can't define the word love, walk down the aisle because they're infatuation and not in love.
So did
Do you
you
get
test
that?
with? Yeah, absolutely. Because I've got the way I've kind of like have it in my mind sometimes it's like this thing of in love is like an internal thing. It's like you make me feel this way, and then actual love is a more outward thing. It's like you care for someone even if they choose a different path, not with you. You still want the best for them. Would you say that's some?
I say it a little differently. I
Mm,
say, because love can be a noun or a verb.
mm,
I love you is a noun, but
mm,
that's not how you should be in a relationship. It is, I am in the act of loving you. I'm constantly in the act of loving you through my attention, through my thought thinking of you, through your needs. And it's used as a verb. And I say, make love into a verb, not a noun. It's
mm.
a constant thing you're always doing.
So tell us about another thing I want to ask you actually, something I felt really
Sure.
guilty about in terms of friendships. I was very good friends with someone, and then I realized after a couple of years of friendship that we had very different values, and they started to make choices that made me feel very uncomfortable. And I felt bad because I felt like I was judging them based on these choices. Um, and, or would you,
Listen, if they were your mom or your sister, you'd have to find a way to make the relationship healthy. But if
yeah,
they're a friend, you don't have to, you can find somebody else. I mean,
yeah.
your
'Cause Let's
values are
let,
different.
because let's say that they weren't illegal, but they were immoral choices. So, and I just started feeling really kind of like, am I being judgmental? But then I wasn't feeling comfortable around this person. So
That's a good sign you probably shouldn't be around that person.
yeah,
Yeah, like I mentioned in the book, like obviously if they're your boss,
mm,
or let's say you're a fundraiser, they're a donor, or they're a big client. Okay, how much do I have to deal with this, right? And you have to find a way to make that healthy if you don't want to lose that client. Obviously, I have one of my clients in America. I was doing business with, and it turns out he's a really bad narcissist. But I and most people have a hard time with him, and I found a way to use it against him. So I'm like, I'm not going to let him bother me, and I'm just going to feed his ego. And
Mm,
now he loves me because I feed his ego all the time, and that because of that, he gives me more business. So I
mm,
found a way to use that, you know, manipulate that relationship more in my favor. Now, of course, I'm not going to lunch with him. I'm not taking, I'm not introducing to my mom, to my wife or my kids. I
mm,
keep that relationship hands off. That's away from my family, away from everybody. But of course, I have other people in business who I love. Who, of course, they can come to my house, they meet my wife, my kids. But like, I have to keep these unhealthy people away from my family. I don't want them near them.
mm. And do you think it's possible for, let's say, someone who's emotionally manipulative or a narcissist to actually, if they had awareness, to actually get better? Or do you just have to leave them if you're in a relationship and you love them? And what do you do in that situation?
I think from what I've learned that people with full NPD, narcissistic
Mm,
personality disorder, it's almost impossible to try to do anything about it. A narcissist does not see that they're a narcissist. They're in their
mm,
own make-believe world and they think everyone owes them everything. And I don't think they can, listen, I'm not a psychologist, but I
mm.
believe that I think my wife mentioned to me that if you are a full narcissist and you want to get help, it's like 7 years of therapy. It's a major.
Wow.
Now, most people aren't NPDs, but they
Mm,
have narcissist personality tendencies,
mm,
right? Tendencies, and I'm sure I've gone through my 20s when I had an ego because I was successful in business and like, I thought I was the greatest. And of course, a lot of people go through this, but I think that that can be more solved easily than someone with full NPD.
mm,
And there's lots of, listen, there are so many books on narcissism, and my book did not focus, it really focused on all the different kinds of emotional vampires. Um, the socially awkward was one I had in my life that like we had to deal with a lot. When you meet men who are in their 40s and 50s who are not um, outgoing or gregarious or socially adept, and they're a little awkward, and that's what I call socially awkward people. And they don't have a hard time getting married, and they have a hard time opening up emotionally to somebody else. They have constipation. They drain me of energy also. So that I have a
mm.
lot of people like that in my life who I have to manage.
Yeah, I'm an event organizer as well. So I have a vegan event group and also a
Oh,
conscious connections a
nice.
group, which is like a sober spiritual group. So I tend to meet cool people through that, but there are a selection of awkward people and they make me awkward. So I'm not, I don't know, I'm not a natural leader. So I find that, these events do tend to, attract some people who don't have groups of friends and things. And then it's like, then that they're kind of like, give me their awkwardness
That
almost.
when you do any sort of event,
Hmm.
you get they come out of the woodwork because these are the people that
Yeah.
don't have anything else in their life.
Mm,
My son's doing an event this week on happiness, and he's in order to find the address out of the event, you have to WhatsApp him because he said to me, Dad, I don't want all the weirdos coming because I do events all the time, and sometimes half the group is I did these singles events for 50s and plus for 50 over people 50 and over. And I walked out of that class thinking to myself, oh my gosh, there's so many people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, and they have no idea how to be in a relationship. They have no idea what they're doing. And this
mm,
is why I wrote a class called From Swipe Right to Wedding Night, How to Make Yourself Irresistibly Marriageable. Right?
mm,
I go through like four different levels of making yourself into a person that someone's going to want to marry,
mm.
you know? And when you have you know, when you're socially awkward, it takes a lot more work.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've been are you married?
No, no.
No. So I'm sure you've been to events like and you've seen like half the guys there is like just they start their conversation out with the top 10 Dungeons and Dragons games or like talk about how like almond milk's dangerous. Whatever it is, it's a weird thing. Like just don't know how to be in a they don't and they don't they miss social clues. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm.
You say a
Yeah,
joke and they
yeah.
don't get it. Like what? Like they don't get they have social clue issues.
Mm. Yeah. I love that. But I think with my events, unfortunately, we have a screen like, about veganism and spirituality and no alcohol. So there
So
is
you're not getting all
so
those weirdos, right?
so we get less weirdos, but in general, we're talking about things that connect us. But then there's also another hurdle is when you get older in life is, not wanting to change because like you become so set in your ways and you think, one question I've had is like, how much do you want to sacrifice? Because obviously, when you're in your 20s, you have a clean slate, but then, it's how much adaptability are you going to allow for?
Well,
You know?
I think one of the issues, in fact, I wrote a little notes to myself. Why is it so hard for people when they're older to get married?
Mm,
I think one of the reasons why you are more now aware than
mm,
you were 20 years ago of narcissism and
mm,
laziness and
mm,
selfishness. And when you're
mm,
22 years old, you don't read that. So you find a guy, you can get married, but now if you're in your 40s and 50s, especially 50s and 60s, you understand people that are lazy and people have, and you're not willing to give up. You're not willing to like bring someone to your life that's going to be selfish. Like, why should I have a selfish guy? But in your 20s, you don't see it.
mm.
I think it just comes from wisdom as you age.
Yeah.
And of course, and the other reason why is a big reason is, let's say in your instance, a lot of the men who are emotionally healthy, like
Mm.
the ones you want to marry, emotionally healthy, emotionally secure with themselves, they're married and they're staying married,
Yeah.
right? Unless you find a widow, the guys getting divorced are more likely to be the guys that have some issues.
Oh my God, yeah. Divorces like that when they're bitching about their ex, and then they're really like, I don't want to commit because they're always burnt out from,
Right. So
relationally burnt out.
and I
Yeah.
hate to say this, but like, there's a prime time that more for women than men, the way God made us, is that, women in their 20s, that's when they should be getting married because that's when they're most, not only most fertile, but that's when guys are attracted to them, like, and I get upset. I meet this is an issue that women have all the time. And I'm sure with men also, but it's an issue because women are more on the clock as far as uh, fertility.
Reproduction. Yeah.
That they meet a guy, 22 years old, and they get into a physical relationship, and it's very comfortable and very easy. And 3, 4, 5 years later, they're still dating, not married, and then the guy breaks up with them, and that now they're in their late 20s and have a harder time finding a guy. And I asked them, "Why were you dating?" And they said, "I'm dating to get married." I'm like, "Well, why'd you wait 5 or 6, 7 years? Oh, you just got married, And I give the woman this tip. It's an acronym. It's called DEW,
Mm,
DEW. It stands for dating, engagement, and wedding.
mm,
That if you're dating for marriage,
mm,
right? And you said, "I am dating for marriage. I'm not dating just because I want a boyfriend to take me to the movie. Or sex. I want marriage."
mm,
Then you have to put a timeline on how long it's going to be before you get engaged, and then you have to put a timeline on how long engagement is going to be.
mm,
So and if you don't, you might get taken to the cleaners. And this is a lot of women are losing out because these guys are taking their best years away. They're not committing. Because
mm.
listen, why should a guy commit? Why should a guy pay for the merchandise when he gets it for free?
Yeah.
I'm being honest, right?
Mm.
Why should we pay for it? And so men are getting married later and later, or not getting married at all. And women are getting, I, I want to write a book. I have a lot of books I'm going to write. And one of them, I don't know if it's going to happen. It's called Slaughtered. It's how the women's live movement have really hurt women's ability to make families and to live lives and within a relationship because God made we're different. We're not the same. I'm not saying you shouldn't go out and get a job and do things, but like, you know, I'm not sure it's spiritually fulfilling women when they don't have children and don't, have a family. I
Mm.
mean, you can tell me. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
For me, what helps me is that I live in a place where it's more normal to not have children and be single. So I feel that the environment is, influences your perspective on life. If I lived in
For
England, I
sure.
think I would feel like a spinster, but because I live in Barcelona, I'm in an expat community. I find other people are really like me, and also the people I know who have children. I don't think they're happier. I think they're all a lot of them are divorced, and that's a very hard thing to deal with. Like going to full-time parent to part-time parent. That's heartbreaking for
Horrible. It's horrible.
yeah,
Well, this is
yeah,
why I wrote Sunscreen Love for that reason.
yeah.
That you should. This is a book that I think everyone in their late teens and early 20s should
Mm,
read and have highlighted and understand what it means to be in a. And it starts with dating. It starts
yeah,
understanding. I go through 4 different phases of love. I go through date them, don't mate them. If you want to catch the right fish, you need the right bait. All
yeah.
these different aspects of dating, understanding what people need and how to become a better dater. And for
Mm.
men, it's really about listening, and that's something we're not so good at as men. We're not really good listeners.
I think for me, my self-love kicked in very late. I think that's something that's kind of like quite hard. And it was very difficult for me when I discovered the notion of attachment styles. That was very alarming to me because I realized that my choice of being single and child free wasn't a choice. It was more consequence of
Sure.
previous things. And that was a very it wasn't a pleasant moment, let's say. But then now I feel okay about it. But it was a very, very alarming realization for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wasn't ready earlier anyway, so I'm okay with the choices I've made.
It's okay.
Yeah.
If you want to get
Mm,
married, it's okay to get married later. I mean, I got married at
mm,
36 years old. I
yeah.
wasn't emotionally prepared when I was in my 20s.
Yeah, me neither. I think it's becoming more and more common now. And I live in Spain, so people weren't, all the guys I was dating were still living at home until 35, so they
That's
hadn't
crazy.
lived didn't know how to use a washing machine, and I left home at 18, so it was very I was in a kind of society where people weren't really finding themselves till mid 30s anyway.
Well, women are a lot more mature. I live in, I teach a lot of women who are like 19, 20 years old, and also
Mm,
men. And the men are like kids, and the women are like ready to get married. It's a
mm,
they're different. They're much more. Women are much more mature than the men are.
mm,
Men are just like little babies.
mm.
They
Yeah,
don't start maturing until late 20s.
yeah. So a couple of questions I ask all of my guests. What is the book that changed your life?
I think there's a book called The 48 Ways to Wisdom,
Mm,
and it's about understanding the different parts of fear and joy and happiness. And it goes through 50 different things in life that if you want to, the book's really about more for religion, about understanding God, but really, I think it's about understanding yourself as a
mm,
person and what drives you and what makes you happy and what makes you sad. And I think understanding our personality traits is so important. And I also, that led me to understanding, the three body parts and three soul types. It's a class that my wife teaches, and it's about understanding what drives people. When you have someone who's always doing the right thing and they can't do the wrong thing, there's no gray area, it's just white or black. That's like there's a specific term we'd call them, and that's who they are as a person. And what drives them. You have people who are thinkers. You have people who we call brachas, or people who are outgoing and need to do the right thing. There's all these different body soul types, and understanding these types have made me much more accepting of other people in my life. I'm like,
mm,
okay, that's the way she is. That's her main drive. And I understand why it might annoy me, but that's who she is. I can't change her. I can't change him. And it's made me much more accepting of people and understanding that everyone has different tendencies. And it's also helped me in my marriage because I know, okay, my wife has certain things that she's great at and certain things she's not great at.
mm,
And if I sit here and complain to her about something that I don't think she's good at, what's it going to change? Not going to change anything. I'm just going to criticize her and criticize her. It's going to destroy the relationship. And I put my marriage on a pedestal. And I do everything to protect it.
mm. Nice, I love that. And what about a quote or affirmation that you live by?
It's your job to change the world, not let the world change you.
Oh, I love that. Cool, amazing. So where can
Yeah.
people find you?
Coach Ratner podcast. I am on
Mm,
Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Um, I have coachratner.com. You can
mm,
connect to those places and also connect to my books on Amazon. I have I've written actually 8 books. I took 3 or 4 of them off Amazon because they're my early versions, and I'm a much better writer than I was a few years ago. But my latest book is called Emotional Vampires. I don't
uh,
know if you can see it. How to protect your happiness from people that suck yours dry. I don't think you can see it.
yeah.
And that's going to be available January 2026, I think January 13th. And then I have Never Feeling Loved Again, which is strategies and symptoms of low self-esteem.
Mm,
And then Sunscreen Love, the 4 phases to find the love you want. And then soon, probably in the springtime, I'll have a book called When Botox Met Bezos.
mm.
It's when low self-esteem, narcissism, and massive wealth collide.
Oh, wow.
It's a very funny book. It's so funny.
You're a very engaging writer. I really enjoyed your book. It was
Yeah, and then
very,
I'm gonna have some other, and then Kosher Climax, which is a chapter in that book. I think it's gonna be a book called Kosher Climax. I
mm,
talk about like how to make like, how to have great orgasms, right? It starts again, and like I always say, the kitchen isn't just a place for mixing, it's a
mm,
place of transition where you're itching for the
mm.
missionary position, right?
Love that.
It's the thing that happens in the kitchen. And the
Mm,
kitchen's a great place because This is where you're there 3 times a day, eating 3 meals, prepping, buying, cooking, and it's a great place for a husband to find help with the needs of his wife, or a wife to help needs of the husband if he's cooking. Like
Mm,
cleaning pots, picking up things off the floor, just being there for the person. And when they know you're there for them, they're going to want to open up to you, not just emotionally, but also physically.
absolutely. And I think sharing a meal is a really beautiful thing as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you for joining us today on the Orgasmic Lifestyle podcast.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Venus. It was great to be on.
The book I'm reading now is Sunscreen Love, The 4 Phases to Find the Love That You Want. This is also by today's guest, Coach Daniel Ratner. And the other book, Emotional Vampires, was fantastic. So when I got a copy of Sunscreen Love, I devoured it and I absolutely loved it. So I actually read it a few months ago. And I loved it because I am a student of love and I love seeing male expressions of being invested in a fulfilling relationship that's monogamous and really investing in your partner and having a plan for forever. Let's say forever can sound maybe a bit naive sometimes for some people, but he talks about this the phase of never leaving, when you're so invested that you're going to stay and work at it. And I just think that's really, really encouraging, because I think sometimes in society, well, we've been taught that, women are always looking for the commitment and men are looking for freedom. But I think there are men out there who do want long-lasting relationships that are fulfilling, and they are willing to do the work that they require to actually create that sense of and fulfillment. And this is just so amazing. I also read this at a time when I was getting over a relationship that was not fulfilling, let's say, and it had lots of toxic dynamics. And even though I wasn't quite ready for love at the time, I think it was a good tool for me to read at the time, because it was helping me to see that what I was releasing, what I was losing, was not at all aligned with this type of healthy dynamic. And that really helped me to distance myself from something that I knew was not good for me. So he talks about the 4 phases of love, and they are choosing the right partner and avoid toxic relationships. And that is, very deep in itself. And sometimes, we do have to take responsibility for what we are attracting and be able to see the signs earlier, because sometimes it's not obvious when you are in a toxic dynamic. It can be very insidious, and sometimes it can just creep up on you that you never realized it, and then one day like, oh my god, how did that happen? And when that day comes, you're already very much emotionally invested in someone, and you cling on to this terrible thing called hope. I mean, recently I've come to realize that the word hope can be very disempowering, because it can keep you in toxic loops, because you have hope that it can get better and it can improve. And also we're taught that not to run away at the first sign of trouble, but there's trouble and there's toxicity, and it's not always easy to distinguish between them. So avoiding toxic relationships is really a personal journey of self-discovery and seeing what patterns you are attracting and what you could possibly work on yourself. Because as we change, so does our environment and the people we attract as well. Also, the second phase is communicate with love instead of criticism, which is super important. You want to keep that united front, and then also the third one, keep passion, respect, and appreciation alive. Very important. That can happen. That can be lost when we get complacent and used to someone and get into the habit zone. But I'm a real believer that, true love is something that's going to expand us and always feel fresh. There's always something to learn about someone, even if you've known them for 20, 30, 40 years. And it's keeping that curiosity is super, super important. And then last but not least, rebuild trust and emotional intimacy. And this is for people who are single, dating, engaged, or married. And it's really about dating for marriage as well. And if I remember correctly, the title Sunscreen Love is about, you have to keep reapplying the sunscreen to have that protection. And that's exactly how it is in a relationship. Having a great foundation is great, but you have to work on it so that it stays that way, because we are constantly evolving as humans. And for two humans to kind of go in the same direction, if that's what the common goal is, then it takes takes work, and but it always should be, with that reward, should always be worth it, worth the effort, for sure. Anyway, if you're looking for love, in terms of a serious relationship that's going to be a life partner, let's say, I would highly recommend this book. Also, if you are getting over a past relationship, it's a good way to kind of see what is healthy and then work towards it. So that is Sunscreen Love, The 4 Phases to Find the Love You Want by Coach Ratner, who is also today's guest. Now it's time for this episode's meditation. Please don't listen to this while driving or operating machinery. Instead, take a break from whatever you're doing, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and enjoy. My peace is worth protecting. I am safe to prioritize myself. I choose relationships that are rooted in mutual respect, trust, and kindness. I release connections that no longer support my well-being or growth. I release what drains me and embrace what empowers me. I'm allowed to say no without guilt or explanation. I welcome relationships that reflect the love and respect I have for myself. My peace is worth protecting. I am safe to prioritize myself. I trust myself to recognize what feels safe and what does not. I honor my needs, my feelings, and my intuition. I no longer sacrifice my well-being to keep others comfortable. I deserve relationships that nourish rather than deplete me. I welcome relationships that reflect the love and respect I have for myself. My peace is worth protecting. I am safe to prioritize myself. I release the need to fix, rescue, or change other people. I choose people who celebrate my authenticity and respect my limits. I am free to walk away from environments that compromise my peace. I protect my energy with clarity, compassion, and confidence. I welcome relationships that reflect the love and respect I have for myself. My peace is worth protecting. I am safe to prioritize myself. I let go of unhealthy dynamics, even when they are familiar. I create space for relationships built on honesty, reciprocity, and care. I am worthy of love that feels safe, consistent, and uplifting. My boundaries strengthen my relationships and honor my values. I welcome relationships that reflect the love and respect I have for myself. My peace is worth protecting. I am safe to prioritize myself. I trust that distance can be a healthy form of self-care. I give myself permission to outgrow people, places, and patterns. I release guilt associated with choosing my own well-being. Each boundary I set is an investment in my freedom, health, and future. I welcome relationships that reflect the love and respect I have for myself. My peace is worth protecting. I am safe to prioritize myself. I no longer tolerate manipulation, disrespect, or emotional harm. I trust that ending unhealthy connections creates space for healthier ones. I treat myself with the same compassion and care that I offer others. I honor my healing by making choices that align with my highest good. I welcome relationships that reflect the love and respect I have for myself. My peace is worth protecting. I am safe to prioritize myself. I deserve to feel emotionally and physically safe in every relationship. I choose workplaces where my contributions are valued and my dignity is respected. I am building a life surrounded by people who respect, uplift, and inspire me. I choose peace over people-pleasing. I welcome relationships that reflect the love and respect I have for myself. If you enjoy the affirmations and meditations I share here, you will love the longer versions I've created on Insight Timer, the world's #1 meditation app, available in the App Store and on Google Play. Every Friday, I release a brand new guided practice on topics like love, health, wealth, motivation, abundance, and many more things, all designed to help you relax, recharge, and realign. Just search for Venus O'Hara on Insight Timer or follow the link in the show notes. To find out more about me and my orgasmic lifestyle, visit venusohara.org or follow me on Instagram. The Orgasmic Lifestyle is also on Substack and YouTube, where you can watch all the interviews with our experts. All the links are in the show notes below. Make sure to search for the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast by Venus O'Hara in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere podcasts are found. And click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks for listening, have an orgasmic week, and make sure every day is a climax.